Started, wanted to give a big welcome to our panel. My name is Corinne Cross. I'm a corporate recruiter with Beacon Hill Staffing Group. So I'm responsible for entry-level hiring for the West Coast, Colorado, and Texas.
Hi, so my name is Madeline Grady. I graduated from Texas Tech back in 2012, so I think I'm the oldest alumni here. But I sit in our Dallas office. I'm an account executive, which means I'm in a sales role. Back when I graduated from Tech, I majored in marketing and management, so Law School of Business, campus involvement. I was in a sorority. I was an Alpha Phi. Katie, who is on my team, who we'll talk today, was also an Alpha Phi, so we're sorority sisters. And then I was also in a business fraternity, Delta Sigma Pi.
My name's Katie Smith. I'm a recruiter on the Beacon Hill financial team here in Dallas. I graduated Tech in December of 2016 with a degree in media strategies. I was a part, like Madeline was saying, part of the Alpha Phi sorority, but I was also a marketing coordinator for the student housing department.
All right. Hey, everyone. My name is Madison Sims. So I graduated from Tech December of 2020. So I just started at Beacon Hill Technologies in the Dallas office back in January. I majored at Tech in business management, so I was also in the roles, and I had a concentration in HR. And then back at Tech, I was also in a sorority. I was in Alpha Chi Omega, and then I also worked on campus at the Texas Rec Center. I worked as a center manager, which was a really fun, awesome job.
Attracted you to the staffing industry, and how does it relate to maybe any of your undergrad experiences?
In insurance. I found out pretty quickly that was not the industry I wanted to be in. And my best friend was in staffing. And she was like, you're organized and you're outgoing and basically all the things that we look for people in staffing. And so she was like, you should just come try it. So I did. And very quickly figured out that it was a better fit for me.
Yeah, so mine was a little bit different. I actually did not know anyone in recruiting or staffing. I didn't even know it was a profession at the time that I graduated. But graduating with media strategies, there's so many different avenues that I could have taken that I just wasn't really finding my perfect fit or home until I legitimately talked to a recruiter, and she was just sitting there waiting for me or waiting for the interview to get started. And, she was just telling me her day-to-day and her job. And I was like, wow, like what you do sounds like something that, I would love to start doing. So did some research, started applying for recruiting. And that's just kind of how I, like I said, stumbled into it.
For me, it was kind of the thing all throughout college. I had that concentration in human resources. So I thought that was what I wanted to do for the longest time. I thought I would never want to work in a commission-based job. And then as graduation was coming closer and closer, I realized how competitive I was and that I actually wanted to work in a commission-based competitive environment. And so I also did not know what staffing was until the career fair was coming around, and I realized all these staffing companies were at the career fair. And that's when I kind of got a better idea of what it was. And then I bumped into my boss at the career fair, and it was like love at first sight. And I realized it was something, I really enjoyed. The recruiting aspect kind of reminded me of human resources in a way, but it was also somewhere I could really be competitive, really show my competitive nature. And so that was when I decided that staffing was actually a good fit for me.
You can tell us specifically about your role and walk us through maybe a recent placement or even just a recent success that you've had.
Yeah. So like I said, I'm in a sales role, and that entails kind of a lot of things. So the main part of my job, I would say, is to meet clients, or I guess get clients to use us to help fill their positions, right? So you're trying to get them contracted with us, and then for them to give us the job order, as we call it, to then fill the role. So once we get the position, get them to sign the contract, then I work with the recruiting team to find perfect fits to match with their positions and then get those candidates started.
Yeah. So like Madeline said, there's so much that goes into recruiting, on a day by day, but overall, I just try to find qualified individuals for our clients. So there's, like I said, there's a lot that goes into it. So I'm constantly sourcing resumes, reviewing resumes. So like ZipRecruiter, Indeed, Monster, Career, I'm scavenging through there all the time.
Tell us about your experience.
Yeah, so I'm sure training in each office, in each division is different, but specifically in the Dallas office on the technologies team. So I came in, of course, with no staffing experience at all, which can be intimidating, I'm sure. But I got a lot of one on one time with our recruiting manager, Mike. Normally, every new recruiter that comes in does get, a lot of one on one time with him where he kind of just helps you first start with the basics, and then, as time goes on, he really does help you get outside of your comfort zone, but he's also there for any questions, anything that you need. There's never any dumb questions. It's easy to feel dumb when you first start something you've never done before.
Yes, that's what I tell candidates. I'm like, very hands-on. It's the best way to describe our training. We don't do bulk hiring classes, right? Like some, entry level, maybe sales or recruiting companies. It's going to be a small group. It's going to be really tailored to the individual, which is awesome. And now we're just building out our virtual training modules and plans even more as the year goes on. But would love to hear about your experience, Katie, going through training with the finance team.
Yeah, so very, very similar to what Matt was saying. Everyone, first of all, was so welcoming with open arms. I did have a little bit more of experience. I had a little bit under 2 years, so I kind of already understood the basics, but my manager really took me under his wing as well and just taught me, how Beacon Hill works and, the finance world. I had no idea anything about finance and accounting, so he taught me a lot about that. One of the cooler things about training as well that I got to experience is actually being flown out to Chicago. I got to meet with other new recruiters from different, parts of, I don't know, just everywhere. But then also we got to meet with a lot of, recruiting managers that have been successful. So we got to bounce off ideas, ask a lot of questions, basically in a classroom setting with everyone. So everyone was kind of on the same level. And I got a lot of, just information in terms of just different ways of how to recruit, right? Because I only had barely over a year of experience. So getting to sit down with people that were on kind of my same level, it helped me out a lot more with asking questions and being engaged with the whole training process.
Maybe where you started and where you're at now, and also how Beacon Hill supports growth. So we will start with Madeline.
Yeah, so as you kind of just laid out, I actually started as a recruiter at Beacon Hill and then moved over into an account executive position. The opportunity came up and my boss said, I think this would be a good move for you. And I agreed with him. So made the move. I do recommend starting in recruiting. I will say you learn so much.
Yeah, so that's actually what brought me to Beacon Hill. I came from a smaller agency that just wasn't very established. They didn't know where they were going, but, they gave me, the recruiting role and I just fell in love with it. But then they wanted to push me into sales. They were like, the next, your promotion, it's going to be sales. It's going to be sales. But I just never really had like a niche for it. So when I was interviewing with Beacon Hill, one of the things that brought me over was just the fact that there's so many different avenues. They're so established. I can become a recruiting manager. I can be a senior recruiter. Like there's so many other just recruiting responsibilities that comes in with a bigger company that I just fell in love with.
What is your favorite part of your job?
Yeah, so for me, as I mentioned before, I guess, the competitive side of this job, I always say that you have to love the grind. And for me, I played soccer. So if you played sports, I'm sure you have that very competitive nature, competitive drive. You love winning. And for me, just in this job, I just love that the work that you put in is what you get out.
I really love just learning more about my industry. You get to know different companies in your, city, what they do, what they specialize in. Everyone's so different. And it's fun learning, to me, learning different things whenever it comes to medical revenue or just finance and accounting in general.
And on that note, the other exciting piece I like to ask is, what would be your favorite? It could be office, team specific, or Beacon Hill at large, but what would you say your favorite tradition is?
Which is the holiday party. They fly you and your spouse or plus one to Boston. They pay for the hotel for 2 nights. They then have a huge party at the Boston Convention Center. Everyone dresses up to the nines. You go, it's open bar. They give out prizes all evening. They, award everyone that made Top of the Hill or President's Club that year.
One of the things I really do enjoy are the quarterly outings that we have. So every quarter, our office coordinator will, I don't know, like I know one thing that we do in Dallas consecutively is a boat party, I guess you could say. So they kind of rent out one of those, just huge boats, and then they'll cater in lunch, and then, just any drink you can think of.
So thanks to COVID-19, I have not gotten to participate in any of the outings, or I will not, and I know I won't get to go to the Christmas party. I'm a little bitter, but I've heard how amazing it is. So it only means I have to stay around extra long for next year. So I'm super excited. But since I haven't gotten to do any of that because I started working, then the pandemic hit in March and we were back at home. Our team, though, specifically in the Dallas office, has just made such a great effort to stay close. Throughout the pandemic, we were having Friday happy hours still. So we all got on group FaceTimes or WebExes and would just talk and hang out for a little while, try playing games, like whatever we could just to stay in touch, which just is so awesome, when your team tries to stay close. And then even now we've gotten to do some social distance events. Recently went to my manager's backyard. Half the team, we got to come, we carved pumpkins, had some drinks. So it was really nice to see their faces again. But I feel like all the teams really make an effort so that you are close to your team, and it's nice to have, see your teammates and just stay in touch with them. It's always that friendly competition, but I cannot wait for next year. Hopefully we can actually do things in person again.
I know. Oh, I forget you couldn't make it.
I know, I'm so bitter.
I know. And it's fun hearing that too, just with the outings. Katie, you mentioned the boat party. That's just another thing. Like, it's unique to each team. It's usually like geographically unique. We've had teams do a wine tasting, a cooking class, taking a boat out, whatever, is kind of fun to do in the area. Again, you can usually get your suggestions heard, but something to just kind of foster that sense of, I don't know, closeness amongst your team. I think it makes working a lot more fun too. So I'm glad you guys have been able to get back near each other distance. So that's awesome. Kind of a tough one, but love to ask and see what everybody comes up with. If you could describe your experience at Beacon Hill so far in one word, what would it be? We'll start with Madeline.
So the word that immediately came to mind was dynamic. So in staffing, no day is the same. Every day is different challenges, different successes. If you're bored, you're not doing your job right. So it's dynamic is what I would say. It just every day is different, and it's keeps it interesting, keeps it fun. So I wouldn't have it any other way.
It's a good way to put it. You can't get bored.
No.
I love it. Okay, how about for you, Katie?
Yeah, so this one was kind of hard for me, but the word that I kind of came across the most would be collaborative. And I'm just saying that because Beacon Hill, we're just such a huge company, but across the board, we all keep up with each other. Per division, who's hitting their achievements, who's been promoted. What's just, hey, we opened up this new office over here, and sometimes we will work with other offices. Let's say, obviously during right now there's COVID going on, so a lot of people are working remotely. So Beacon Hill Financial Dallas and Beacon Hill Financial New York were actually working on one similar position. So I thought that was really cool that we were all kind of working together. We were sharing different marketing knowledges and things like that. So I think just the fact that, Beacon Hill keeps everyone together, and collaborating is really great.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's the kind of environment too, like, to your point, if you saw someone, and an email came out about President's Club or a recent success and you had a question, you thought you could learn something, this is the kind of company where send them an email, they will get back to you. They'll hop on a call with you, they'll FaceTime you. People are excited to talk with each other, to meet people, especially while we're all at home. But I think just in general, it's a great word. I haven't heard that one yet. To collaborate with each other is awesome. And how about for you, Maddie?
Yeah, both of those you mentioned are great. I know I missed this word earlier, but for me, the first word that came to mind was rewarding. In so many ways, this job is rewarding. Not every week is going to be easy. Some weeks are really tough. Some weeks are amazing. I always say the recruiting gods are looking out for us at certain times. But, whenever to see your hard work pay off, and sometimes that could be, I worked on roles that take months to close. And when you are the person that finally closes that, it's so rewarding. And, your teammates are always there to congratulate you. So really for me, I just think this job is rewarding. And also in the fact of, like I mentioned, placing someone who maybe got laid off back in March due to the pandemic, you're finally able to get them a job again, get them back on their feet, to hear that excitement in their voice. It's just rewarding, monetary wise, and then just, helping people out when they really need it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great answer. And like you said, it feels impactful what you're doing, and then also personally rewarding, right? You place somebody, bigger commission check. Our managers, I would say our teams are all about recognition. They'll do all kinds of mini competitions, motivate people, keep you excited. I think that's a big piece of coming up our kind of industry where, you're going to reap the benefits if you're putting in the effort really early on in your career. So those are some great description words. Well, one thing I like to address too for people listening and kind of wondering, why do companies maybe use staffing agencies, right? It can be a little bit confusing if you're just hearing about the industry. So something to highlight is that Beacon Hill works with clients from Fortune 500 companies all the way through to startups. So we connect with clients in various industries: real estate, law firms, banks, marketing and advertising agencies, again, tech startups. So all the way across the board, we take on the burden and risk of a full-time employee as these temporary or contract candidates are being paid through Beacon Hill. So as a W-2 employee. So that being said, if one of our candidates needs unemployment or benefits, that's going to come through Beacon Hill. It's also why, as a staffing consultant, you are continuously communicating with your candidates who are working on an assignment, because you're essentially their like HR representative almost, right? You're giving them updates, feedback, good news, bad news. You're that main point of contact. And just to go through a few examples of temporary and contract placements, get an idea of different divisions. We have, for example, our associates division. So they tend to see very short-term contracts in their day-to-day. They could receive a call this afternoon from a client who tells us their, receptionist, the front desk has called in sick for the next day. They need somebody to cover a 1 to 2 day project. We're going to find them somebody. So those staffing consultants are going to come through with someone who is ready to go in that super short amount of time. And then on the other hand, we have our technologies and financial, life sciences divisions that tend to be longer contracts, on average between 3 to 6 months, but we see 1 year, 2 years, or just ongoing. So given the nature of these candidates and their more specialized skill sets, clients look to Beacon Hill to find a really qualified candidate who has the skills that they're looking for and also the bandwidth ready to jump into a project right away. So just some good things to note for people kind of wondering about the industry at large. So there's lots we share about our positions. I'm sure all of us could probably go on about our jobs, but we'll give it a chance. I'll take a peek at our Q&A box. Okay. This is a good question. I will kick it. Let's see. We'll go to Madeline first. What would you say is your biggest piece of advice for somebody interested in applying to Beacon Hill? Maybe how to stand out through like an interview process with us.
Yeah, I mean, well, I guess it depends which position you're applying for, but just letting your competitive nature show through is going to go a long way. This ultimately it is a competitive job, and not necessarily like you're competing with your coworkers, but you're competing with yourself to really do as best as you can possibly do. There's certain numbers you have to hit, and you do have to push to hit them. And then that, and just also, when you're applying or when you're interviewing, if you have experience maybe like overcoming objections, that is a big piece of this job as well. You have objections even when you're working with candidates. You would think that they would just say yes to everything. That is not true. They push back on you over pay rates. They push back over location, or, oh, well, that company has a bad reputation. Well, who did you hear that from? I mean, it's any experience that you can talk about or bring up where you've had to negotiate, or just your people skills. This is really a people job. We're dealing with the people that are candidates and then the people that are clients. And then you got to bring them together in a way that seems seamless. So I would just say talk about that as experience as much as you can.
Yes, no, that's good advice. Whatever you can tie in, I could probably tie in anything to staffing at this point. But I guess that's a good one to ask you too, Maddie. You might have similar advice, but since your interview process was the most recent, and I would say again from somebody who met us at a career fair and interviewed, things were in person. But any advice that you think right way back when, anything, any advice that you would maybe tell like a graduating senior who just connected with us on what you think might help, in applying to Beacon Hill?
Definitely. I mean, I think the biggest thing is, having, like she said, showing that competitive side. I think also confidence, just being able to carry yourself with confidence, I think is something that anyone who is interviewing you will love to see, because in this job, you can get a lot done with confidence. You may not truly know, like, I don't know a lot of the technologies that I'm hiring people for or how that really works in a computer. But if you have confidence, just same with the sales side, talking to a manager, it's going to get you so far. So I think just really being confident in yourself and showing whoever's interviewing that you are confident, and then just showing them that you are competitive, that you love to win, because they want someone on their team, who loves to win. And so I say those two things are my biggest piece of advice when interviewing for Beacon Hill.
Yes, that's great. And I tell candidates, right, we don't require coming in entry level to have a staffing internship. I would probably be shocked if somebody found that, a recruiting internship or, a certain degree to be with a certain division, right? There's some backgrounds I would say that maybe help you get ramped up much quicker, but it's not a requirement. So to the question of, right, like, how can I better prepare myself or what do I need to have to do this job? I tell them, well, let's look at what you have done that's relevant, right? Most people have worked in the restaurant industry. Have you been a hostess, or maybe you've been a server, a waiter, or you've bartended, right? Have you worked towards tips, retail, customer service? You have to keep a level head. Yeah.
Sorry, Corinne, I need to add one more thing.
Yeah.
This is just a little tip too when applying is someone had told me to take off, like, just as I'm more recent to college, but told me to take off certain jobs maybe from high school. But when I interviewed my director, actually, when I actually told her, this job I had in high school, I started working when I was 16 or whenever you can start working. She really liked to see that. I didn't have any experience, but to her, it shows the hard worker that you are. So, like, maybe don't be afraid to keep those things on your resume, because I think, at least in staffing, my employer really liked to see that I have been working for as long as I could. Also, working through college just shows that you can balance things. This job is balancing a lot of different things at the same time. So definitely showing that you worked throughout college. If you did, definitely throw that on your resume. That's just a little tip, I think, because I took it off and then my director was like, no, you should have kept that on there. Obviously now I don't need that. I worked at Sonic, but to her it was helpful.
Yes, no, that's great advice. I think it's relevant to the job that you're going for. And again, and in my opinion, going for these types of sales oriented roles, keep that on there. If you're someone who's worked since as soon as you could, you wanted to have your own spending money, you're saving up for something, like that's, I feel like, what our job is all about. So that's great. And I don't know if you have anything to add, Katie. You might just agree with the answers that were said, but wanted to give you a chance, anything to stand out in the interview process or any advice you would give?
Yeah, I think recruiting in general, you kind of have to be outgoing in a sense. You're cold calling people all day, and you're going to get a whole lot of no. So it's being able to be adaptable towards that, not really taking that to heart. I think that's where I see a lot of people kind of get in trouble. They kind of, they're a little bit more emotional about the job, where it's just kind of like, you just kind of have to go, 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 just be friendly, be outgoing. Definitely the competitive side. I feel like a lot of managers do look for that, versus, somebody that's just kind of like, oh, I just want to help people find jobs, but you also want to be competitive in a sense as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And the outgoing piece, right? What I tell candidates, I think that's like tangible, is when you get on the phone call or the video for now, be the one that starts the conversation, right? Ask the questions to get the small talk going, really drive things, because that's what we do all day long. So it's great practice. And one other question that just came in, I will again kick this one to you, Madeline. What would you say is the toughest part of your job?
So I don't know that there's like one particular thing, but in staffing in general, there are a lot of challenges, right? So it's things don't always go the way you want them to. We work with people, and people can be disappointing, and it is hard sometimes to not let that bring you down, right? So, for example, we had a candidate a few weeks ago. She interviewed, got the position, went through this very lengthy background check process. She starts, and on the third day, she called in sick. So the client was like, end her. We don't need her. Find someone else. So there was a lot of work on our end. And then Katie had to call her and fire her. So firing people is not fun. And then, knowing that you have to tell the client that you feel like you've let them down because this candidate didn't do what you thought they would do. I mean, it is challenging, but the more you do it, you just kind of know that you have to just not let those things drag you down. You have to have thick skin and just move on and figure out ways to try to avoid that from happening in the future. Something that we've always said in staffing is it's not if something bad will happen, it's when. And so it's just learning how to problem solve and just overcome it. And then that way, the next time something crappy happens with a candidate or a client or whatever, you're more prepared and you just deal with it and you move on. It's fine. It's not like it only happens to us. It happens to everyone in staffing. So it's challenging, but it's rewarding. I mean, at the same time. So
yeah, no, that's great advice. I think, like you said, people are a lot of things. People are unpredictable, and it's people. It makes it makes our job exciting. We don't want every day to be the same and get monotonous, but it comes with its ups and downs. So you have to be able to again kind of ride the wave. There's going to be those low points, and then there's going to be the high points. So I think it's like you said, having a good team around you, keeping a level head. I think a positive attitude goes a long, long way in our job. So that's great advice. But it's not all challenges. Any job has challenges.
No, exactly.
I think the best days for ours when you get to tell someone even they got an interview or the feedback was great, and then the best of all, you got an offer or something. Your candidate gets a raise. So I love hearing that. Awesome. Well, I think that's it on questions. Wanted to give a huge thank you to you three for joining us, and thanks to attendees. If you're interested in applying to any of our internal positions, you can reach out to me directly via email. So as soon as we log out of this, there will be a follow-up survey with my email in there. You can send an email. We are hiring across all divisions, multiple locations for entry-level sales and recruiting positions, and things are underway. We could have teams extending offers to 2021 grads as soon as next month. So we're very excited to connect with more Texas Tech seniors and hopefully get some more alumni in our offices, and wanted to thank everyone for their time. So thanks, guys. Have a good rest of your evening.